morning. It's Michael Galyen with Bailey Galyen Attorneys, along with James Bridge from Bailey Galyen Attorneys, and today we're going to have a conversation about a few different things with the law. But one of the things that we were talking about just off camera, and I said, let's start rolling that camera because I think this is a conversation that people are going to want to hear about. Mr. Bridge, what were you just telling me before I said we need to start rolling?
Well, it's about people wanting to hire attorneys and not really understanding the process, and then getting into the process in a late stage. Meaning, in other words, their case could be hurt by not hiring an attorney.
Sure.
And when that happens, evidence gets lost. Witnesses, they don't remember what they saw. And it doesn't have to be just personal injury. It can be family law. It can be immigration. It can be anything, because those type of evidence and testimony is important for the building of the case.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And one of the things you were talking about especially is how sometimes people have a problem getting past that first step, calling an attorney, because the law can be scary. Like you mentioned, the scariest part about the law is when you don't know the law.
Right.
And so, we're talking about all the things we can do as lawyers to try and help those out there that don't know the law, instruct them on just basic things that, you and I, who have been doing this for some time, that is just second nature to us. What's a deposition? What's a mediation? Things like that, right. That, similarly, if it were an electrician or a plumber or somebody talking to one another, we'd probably have no idea what they're talking about, right? And so to the extent that we can put out that content, talk more about that sort of stuff, that would certainly be helpful for those that are kind of, I wouldn't say scared of the legal process, but they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of things, a lot of professions, they have their particular terms.
Right.
And those terms, if you're not familiar with them, it becomes a scary proposition, because what you don't know is sometimes the most feared thing. And having the knowledge base of what's going on in your particular matter or case will benefit your case in the event that you actually have a litigation case or something of that matter. That doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. I was just thinking about, and when we were talking about that the other day, I had a plumbing issue come up at my house, and that's why I thought about that. And the plumber was trying to explain to me what the problem was, and it could have been a foreign language, and he's just saying, this is what's wrong, this is what I'm going to do, this is how much it's going to cost. And I'm thinking, I need my plumbing to work. Yeah, man, please, whatever you need to do. And while I trusted that guy and it all worked out fine, I was thinking to myself, I don't want those who come to us with legal matters to think the same way. Like, look, I'm going to let you do it, whatever. I don't understand it, and I don't care. I think it made me think about the fact that I need to do a good job at explaining what it is that I'm doing and how it's helping you as we're doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. When I first started my career, as a young lawyer, you look at things and you say, these are the four elements of whatever, and you're going this, and this. And it makes sense to us because we've been trained in that. But when you talk to somebody that does not have that knowledge base, that discussion becomes technical, just like it was with you with the plumber. And so I remember an event one time where a client said, Mr. Bridge, I appreciate everything you're telling me. It makes sense on some level, but I don't understand it. Can you make it more in something I can understand? And I said, you know what, you're right. Lawyers tend, or all professionals tend to talk the language of what their profession is. And it can be a foreign language to everybody if they don't understand it. So part of the process of finding an attorney is one where you can understand and appreciate what they're telling you, but also they appreciate your understanding of what you're being told. And that is an important aspect, because a lot of lawyers, for better or worse, tend to talk big. Like, we like to write a lot of papers, we like to read a lot of stuff, and we like to talk. And as a result, we can over talk things and over tell too much information that people then become, like you said when you were listening to the plumber, this connects to this. I get it. I just want my plumbing working.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same issue that people, they just want their issue addressed in language that they can appreciate and understand, and then make an informed decision on what they want to do in their case.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you make a good point about the story you brought up of the client, saying, hey, I appreciate you trying to explain this, but I don't understand it. And I think that's an important point that oftentimes we talk about, especially in the podcasts and the content we put out about what we're here to do for you, what we can do for you, how Bailey and Galyen can help you. But, one thing that's also important when coming to us, or any lawyer for that matter, is telling them when you don't understand something. It's so easy to nod along, and smile when you're having a conversation with somebody. But as your lawyers or as a lawyer, you really want to make sure your client understands what it is you're saying, because you have to make an informed decision on those sorts of things. And so without understanding what we're talking about, you can't really make an informed decision,
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, it is an intimidating conversation to have. And it's especially intimidating not only when you don't understand or you're not following along, but you are scared because your situation is, my child is in a situation that I need to make sure that they're better cared for, or I'm about to lose my immigration status and I need to make sure that I protect and stay here and help my family. Or you're in a car wreck and you don't know what to do and how those bills are still piling up. And so having the ability to converse with your attorney and have that conversation, and that attorney converse back with you and tell you as much as they can tell you that makes sense in the direction of where your case is going, because this process doesn't work if it's just a one-way street.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, you and I go home, we go to sleep, and we come back and do the same thing the next day, right? But we're not necessarily at home at night worrying about how that bill's going to be paid, because we're not in that person's shoes, right? And so lawyers tend to just look at things and go, XYZ is a way to get to that point. We're going to do this, and this is how much it's going to cost. But people then need to understand beyond just the cost and where we're going. They want to know the nuances and how that's going to make my life better, not just getting this case going.
Right, and it's easy sometimes for me to not think about it quite as much, because I mainly focus in the personal injury realm, where we're paid on a contingency fee, which is essentially, for those who don't know, a percentage of what we ultimately can recover on your behalf. If we don't recover any money, you don't owe us any money. However, Bailey and Galyen does have other areas of law, like family law, like immigration, like criminal, where that's not how it works, where it's either most times an hourly fee, but sometimes it's a flat fee, depending on, if we're talking criminal or immigration in some cases. But sometimes it's easier for me to not think about it, because the clients call me all the time. They're not necessarily worried about their bills running up, right? And but for those other areas of law, that's something that not only the client is cognizant about, but the attorneys have to be as well, and something that they're dealing with when we're talking about this exchange of information.
Absolutely, and that's why it's important when you have that initial consultation with that attorney, that you tell them everything that's going on and what's in your case, and even if you don't believe it's important because one fact can lead to another fact that we didn't even realize, or that client didn't even realize, but then it developed is because we have that knowledge base now from that client, and then we can pursue that angle. And so at the end of the day, having an effective conversation and an effective attorney-client relationship is a two-way street. And we want our clients to appreciate that we empathize with what's going on in their case. But we also, as professionals, have to kind of sometimes be above the fray. And what I mean by that is we while we might look like we're just robots, and in some cases we kind of are little robots when we go down to the courthouse, but we need to make sure that we tell the client or make the client feel that their case is essential and is important, and that we give them that feeling that they matter.
Yeah.
Because a lot of attorneys, I tell you, I've been in this business almost 28 years, and attorneys can be very short, and we lack bedside manner. It's like doctors have bedside manners, right? So a lot of lawyers, especially older lawyers, are just so used to like painting by numbers on their case of how this case is going to go, and they fail to tell the client what's going on, or what it means, what this filing means. And we live in a society now that you can pick up your phone and you can Google anything, or Bing or whatever. You can find anything, and what is a fun term, we call it, don't Google my law degree.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, it's important because those type of educational things give clients a better understanding of what their case is, and gives them the ability to also ask those questions that they might not otherwise not know, or know that they need to ask.
Sure. You bring up Google, and this is an interesting sidebar. I know AI has been around for a while now, but I think that a lot of people have been using it more these days. Specifically, your Chat GPTs, your Gemini, Grok, whichever your preferred AI is. And we'll get clients that will try and talk to us about what the law may be. And, I was having a conversation the other day with a client because they were sending me something that was actually pretty helpful. But then it cited certain cases, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about that case before. That's a proposition of law I haven't heard about. I'm going to go read the case. And there was multiple. Lo and behold, most of the cases did not exist, and the only case that did exist didn't talk about the proposition of law that ChatGPT was discussing at all. And so just kind of as a sidebar to our conversation, yes, LLMs and AI and that sort of thing can be helpful if we're talking about concepts of law. Maybe if you're asking it, hey, what's a mediation? What's a deposition? What is discovery? But when we're getting into the more nuanced areas of case law or some other things, I would certainly tell people maybe leave that to the lawyers. But I don't know. I'm not gonna try and say we know everything, because we certainly don't. But as of right now, AI is not the answer to those sorts of questions.
So you're telling me, Michael Galyen, that AI is not trustworthy?
Not for legal research. Not yet.
Yes, I not only is it not trustworthy, because what is the definition of AI? Artificial intelligence. And how does that intelligence become intelligent? It is trained, it's learned. It learns through people asking questions and then finding those answers and then building that answer to give back to you. It's funny to see folks that will rely upon things that don't exist.
Well, interestingly, I've seen plenty of orders from judges around the country. It seems like almost every single day there are lawyers being sanctioned for the use of AI for citing cases. Right. And it can be a helpful tool. I'll tell you, I was in court the other day trying a case. We're preparing for the charge conference, which is essentially, we're getting prepared to both the plaintiff and the defendant have the opportunity to try and put what they want into the jury charge before that goes back to the jury. And we're trying to figure out, how we can phrase a certain question. And interestingly enough, there's a whole big book, the Texas Pattern Jury Charge, right, where you can look into it. But that's not even enough. There's a bunch of cases on it. And so I'm trying to find a proposition of law to help me phrase the question in a way that I'd like it to go back to the jury. And my co-counsel, who's sitting second chair, puts it into Chat GPT and says, hey, there's a few cases on this. And so we're in the charge conference as this is happening. And I tell the judge, I think I found some cases that support my proposition. However, I'm not going to give them to you on the record right now. I want to read them first if we can take a quick recess, and I'll give them to you as well if you'd like to read them. And he said, great, thank you, counsel. we read the cases and they don't say that at all. And so we go back on and I'm like, Judge, never mind, I do not have the cases. But so I use that story because AI can be helpful, but you have to be very careful before you try and use it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, like you said, you see daily examples of people that are relying upon AI, and then it turns out that it's, like you said, it's just totally not even close. It looks good, it's in a great format and all that, but it's just not, it's not the actual law. Part of the AI is it is so brand new, and it's becoming more and more prevalent across the board that bar associations, judges, all manner of industries are saying, okay, these are the rules that we want you to live by, and if you can't live by the rules, then it's a problem, right? And you, like you said, you didn't want to present bad cases to the judge, because then he would say, well, Mr. Galyen, that is not the right law, and therefore this case I'm questioning. And so that just, we don't want that to ever happen. And so as a firm, my job is to make sure that we implement the things that comply with the law, that is easily understandable, but at the same time, we have to live by the rules that are set for us. And part of that is we can't rely on AI right now.
Yeah, certainly not. I mean, again, there are ways that it can be helpful in your everyday life, but as of right now, the way things are, we have to avoid it for the most part. But you bring us around to a point that I wanted to discuss a little bit further today, the firm, Bailey Galyen. I've been with the firm now for a little over 5 years since being out of law school. However, you've been around a little bit longer than that.
Just a tad bit.
I wanted to talk about the firm's growth and where it started and where it's been, and I think that that's kind of an interesting place to start, because you were with Bailey Galyen back when it wasn't quite as big as it is today.
Correct.
What do you remember about those days? What do you remember about the firm, and your experience and how things have gone since then?
Well, when I first got to Bailey Galyen, which was in 1999, I don't know how old you were at that.
4 years old.
4 years old. I do remember you coming around and seeing you in there all that. And here we are today, talking to you as both lawyers one-on-one. And it was a much smaller firm. We didn't have as many offices. We didn't have as many employees. It was an interesting time because I was a brand new lawyer, and learning how to be a lawyer and how to do things was part of that growth. And I was lucky enough to earn the trust and became a manager of the pre-lit department in personal injury. And from that, it just kind of grew from there. I think we started off, at the time when I started with Bailey Galyen in '99, I think we had maybe like 10 or 11 lawyers at the time, maybe a little bit less than that. I didn't know all of them, but I certainly was wanting to meet all of them. But today we have 40 plus lawyers. We have multiple offices in multiple states, and the growth is just, it's a testament to the folks that work for this firm. Most of the employees and especially the lawyers have been around for decades. We have some that have been with Bailey Galyen for almost 35 years. And that's a testament to the culture of this firm, is that we want people to feel comfortable working here, and when they feel comfortable working for this firm, they convey that to that client, and that client they can see that the attorney knows what's going on and what their role is supposed to be, and then conveying that to the client. It's just a tremendous opportunity that this firm has made for folks across, because it's been 40 plus years. Actually, it's 42 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so imagine over 42 years how many clients this firm has served. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of folks. And that tells we're doing something right.
Right.
And what we're doing right is we're trying to make sure the client appreciates what's going on in their case. We give them the knowledge to make a decision on their case, and we hopefully get to the resolution that they're looking for. Now, you and I both know as lawyers that not every case wins.
Yeah.
Not every family law matter gets what we want out of that. But you have to make sure that you give the best effort within the law, and you make sure that the client understands that and appreciates that. And regardless of the outcome, people, if you give them the effort and you show the effort, which this firm does on a day-to-day basis, people will come out with a better result.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a good point about firm culture, because, I mean, you can tell. So you go to a specific restaurant, I don't want to call one out by name, but if the waiter or waitress or hostess or host doesn't want to work there, you can feel it when you come in there, right? You can, through the service, and just like a restaurant, a law firm is a service. We're providing a service to the clients that come to us, and we hope that when people come to us, it feels as though it is that fancy restaurant, or not even necessarily fancy, but it is that place where you come in and you feel like, okay, this is the place where I need to be for this service, whether it's the family law or criminal or personal injury, whatever it may be. We want you to feel like the experience you're getting is from a group of people that seem genuinely happy to be there to help you to do their job. And look, people have bad days every once in a while, so I'm sure you'll run into that at a restaurant or whatever in some of the other places we were talking about. But you can tell by the effort that people are putting in to these cases, that our attorneys do truly care about their job, care about their clients, and care about the effort that they're putting into their work.
I mean, we all want to be appreciated, and we all want to do a good job. And so if you enjoy what you're doing and you know what you're doing, that comes across to people that are listening to you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the clients. It can be the judges too. I mean, lawyers have a line that we walk, and that line is we're serving the client first and foremost, but then we also have those relationships that we have with the judges and the other people on the other side of the bar. And at the end of the day, if one of those three groups are not working together, when I say working together, just because they're on the other side does not mean that they're 100% an adversary.
Sure.
I mean, they're advocating for their client just like you're advocating for our clients. And if you do it as you're supposed to, then regardless of the outcome, you've given your best effort. And the client appreciates that. And at the end of the day, if you don't have that type of relationship with everybody in those three groups, then it will break down. And eventually, you won't have any clients, or two, the judges hate you so much you don't get clients because you get bad rulings. And so the bottom line is that attorneys have to live the way the law says we're supposed to live and within the rules, but we also have to make sure that we advocate for the client and go from there.
Yeah, no, and you make a good point about attorney attitude or almost personality to a certain extent.
Right.
Some people say, I'm looking for a bulldog attorney or a yelling, screaming attorney because they think that that's what will net them the best result. But you make a good point that attorneys with that reputation not only have trouble getting anything done because people within the community don't like them, right, and know that there's going to be issues, and certainly the judges as well. And so following, I wouldn't necessarily say norms, but just being a likable person generally helps.
Human?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, we talked a little bit about Bailey Galyen and what progress has looked like over the years since you started. But one of the things that Bailey Galyen does a little bit differently than a lot of what we'd call consumer side law firms is here in North Texas that we handle a lot of different areas of law. I mentioned a few of them earlier, but it's personal injury, it's family law, it's immigration, it's criminal, it's workers' comp, it's wills and trusts, it's social security disability. I mean, as the COO, look and managing attorney of this firm, how are you getting your arms around all these attorneys, all these law types, all these offices?
Well, it's not easy.
Sure.
Yeah, I always say it's sort of like herding cats a little bit. But when you have a good team and you empower them to do what they're supposed to do, and you monitor that and make sure that, one, they're responding to clients, they're responding timely on their court cases, because everything has a progression, right? And so if the process is working where it's supposed to be, then it's pretty smooth, right? But it's when the things get a little sideways, and sometimes it can be sideways because a judge becomes a visiting judge, or it can get sideways because the client is out of the country, and so there's a lot of different moving parts. But the way I manage is I empower the lawyers, the team members, the paralegals, everybody to, what do we say, do your job, right? And if you do your job the way you've been trained and the way you know to do your job, then the results will happen. But at the same time, people are so used to watching television and seeing lawyers on the television. And they're so used to having cases, it resolves itself in an hour. Or they see a lawyer jump up and make a speech during the middle of testimony that somehow sways the jury, and the jury comes back in 5 minutes and the case is over.
Right.
So Michael, when you first started out, I know when I first started out as a lawyer, I felt like I could conquer the world. And I saw a lawsuit in every corner. And that's kind of typical for most young lawyers when they first start out. I'm a little bit senior now, and so I can't remember as many stories from when I first started. But can you recall a story when you first started as a lawyer and you're like, hear me roar, I'm King Kong, I'm going to take on this world, and if you don't do this, I'm going to sue you or whatever? Do you recall having a feeling or conversation like that at some point?
That's an interesting question, because once you pass the bar, you take the oath, you become licensed, you get your bar number, then you do feel some sense of power, as small as it is, that I can file a lawsuit. Now, anybody can technically file a lawsuit, what's called pro se, but I thought this is a power. Now that, as you mentioned, goes away over time, but I would say, rather than like a specific time that I felt like I was going to conquer the world with that ability, the first time that I went and took a deposition, I think was my, oh shoot, this is real moment. I go into this thinking, man, and for those who don't know, a deposition is a part of discovery. You file a lawsuit and you get an opportunity to learn more about each other's case and the facts involved and what the witnesses are going to say. And so we schedule a date and a time. Oftentimes these days they're done over Zoom, but before the pandemic they were mostly done in conference rooms. There's a court reporter there taking down everything that's being said, attorney asking the witness questions. The witness will sometimes have an attorney as well present. Anyway, so I'm taking a deposition, and it's one of my first ones, and I over prepared. I have an outline that's pages and pages, and I still kind of do this to this day, but I mean the outline is the specific questions I'm going to be asking. It's not even topics or subtopics.
Right.
I am just ready to go, and I'm thinking to myself, I think the Texas rules are what, you get like 6 hours to depose a witness, and I don't intend on using all of that, but I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be long. And I'll tell you, I shot through those questions, and I think the deposition was over in 45 or 50 minutes. And I was out of questions, and I thought, okay, I guess I'm done. And what I've since realized is writing down every single question and sticking to that, and only that, is a terrible way to take a deposition.
Yep.
You learn over time that you need to interact with the witness in a way that it's almost conversational, because they'll give you pieces of information that you need to follow up on. And they'll phrase answers in a way that allows you to kind of maneuver into evidence and testimony that you need to prove your case.
And they didn't realize that they were doing that.
Exactly. And when you stick yourself to an outline, I mean, the witness could have given me probably the best answer, and if I would have just followed up with one additional question, it would have been a slam dunk for the case. But instead, I've, picked up my outline and was like, okay, next question, and so I thought prior to the deposition, I'm a new attorney and I'm gonna take on the world with this. And after I got done and I went through it that quickly, I kind of had a debriefing moment in my office that afternoon and thought, man, I got to go back to the drawing board with this.
Well, it's a learning process, right? My first deposition was actually the first day I got licensed.
Really?
I got licensed about 1 o'clock in federal courthouse here in downtown Fort Worth. And then I was asked by the firm that I was working for at the time, because I'd interned with them and became a lawyer. They asked me to go defend a deposition down in Cleveland. So I'm driving to Cleveland, Texas, thinking, wow, I'm a lawyer, I'm getting ready to do lawyer stuff. And so I get down there and I go through the deposition. And in defending a deposition means that the other side called my client to testify to what the matter was, which was, this case was a family law case. Mind you, I've never had a family law case before, because this was my first day as a lawyer. It was an interesting prospect. But I do remember getting back to the office and telling the main partner, I don't ever want to do family law again, because they were arguing over simple things like spoons, forks, and knives. And I just thought it was an interesting dynamic. But that's kind of what things happen in family law, and all kinds of things. Controversy can be as small as something and minor as a spoon, and it can be as big and major as a death case. And so every deposition is important. Every opportunity to represent the client is important. But at the same time, it is fun, though. I enjoy being a lawyer. I'm sure you enjoy being a lawyer.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah. Right? But there's a lot to it. But you also, you as a new lawyer, you have to grow into the role.
Certainly. And like you mentioned, whether it's a family law case and it's a couple who are divorcing, arguing over their kitchen cutlery, or it's the death of a loved one and you're trying to hold the responsible party at fault. I mean, all of those things are important. Whatever's important to the client is important to us.
Correct.
And ultimately, I think I can speak for our firm, but I'll speak for myself specifically. I take that role pretty seriously, and every single case, every single client, I do my best to try and step into their shoes and fight for them, as they're my own family, friend, whatever it may be, and I like to think that that all of us here at Bailey Galyen do that same thing, and as we wrap up this conversation, I would like to leave people with a little bit more about our firm and what we could potentially do to help you if you are going through one of these problems we talked about, whether it was a car wreck, a truck wreck, a workplace injury, you need a will. I mean, all of those sorts of things. We're here to help you guys. How would you say that we do things differently, or what do you think that our attorneys, or even just our intake process, or whatever you think sets us apart, what would you like to tell people that, hey, when you come to Bailey Galyen, you should expect this?
Well, I always have this saying. It says, what is routine for us is unique to the client. And so we need to look at that process that way. And as you said, kind of stepping into their shoes, and appreciating where they're coming from, and then helping them get to a point where their case is where they want it to be or where they hope it to be. Like I mentioned when we talked about before, not every case turns out the way we expect it to or the client, but that's just because that's litigation.
Sure.
But if you leave that case in a better place than it probably was before, that's a win. Now, does that win mean that you get everything you want? No. But at the end, if you approach things as an opportunity to be an advocate for that client, and you are in that process and you're doing the things that you're supposed to, the client will appreciate that. And sometimes the best closure is closing the book, and that is the end goal, basically, is to make sure that the client understands what happened and is appreciative regardless of the outcome.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, and it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about, keeping the client informed, and again, information's a two-way street, but those things, are certainly important and something that I think we prioritize here at Bailey Galyen. But well, Mr. Bridge, I'd like to thank you for taking the time today. This is Michael Galyen and James Bridge signing off from the Legal Cafe in downtown Fort Worth. If you have any legal questions, any legal problems, Bailey Galyen has offices throughout the state of Texas and Arkansas, and you can give us a call at 1-800-LAW-OFFICE or just go to thetexasattorney.com. Mr. Bridge, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good day, folks.